podcast. Hell yeah, brother. Overload, brother.
Beats by @Smoke M2D6.
Welcome to another episode of Seattle Overload. This week we're going to be looking at. This week implies we're weekly. I will try and be weekly. We
This
don't promise
episode
anything.
is probably safer phrasing. This episode of Seattle Overload.
This episode of Seattle Overload is brought to you by nothing, unfortunately. Please, someone sponsor us.
Yes.
Starring Matty F. Brown.
Brown.
Wow.
Gonzalez.
That's a C-list name.
Solace.
Griffin Sturgeon.
Sturgeon.
Can we edit in SNL music, intro music during that portion?
No, it's copyrighted.
Anyway,
Yeah,
And we're
Matty,
going to be looking at.
I'm doing fine, Matty. Thanks for asking. How are you?
Yeah,
And Ty,
no-
how are you?
No problem. I was fine until
Fantastic.
there was a mutiny for the host spot. It seems I've lost it. I'm such a good host.
I was just being
We're doing
efficient.
great.
So that we
you
stay
snooze,
on- so
you
that-
snooze, you lose.
Yeah, I'm just trying to stay on track is all.
We're going to be looking at the state of the Seahawks 2022 roster as currently constructed. I am sure they will add multiple new players and cut a few surprises along the way as they look to evoke the same kind of atmosphere as they had in 2010, 11, 12, and they've rushed the churn, particularly 11, I'd say. So, how do you feel about the roster? First, we'll start with the offense. Griffin, best position groups.
Oh, we're just going straight into superlatives. Best position group is probably receiver. Do we group, or how about this? Best position group is the players that catch the ball. So
that's not
that
position
includes
group.
tight ends.
That's the running backs catch the ball.
They do, but they don't catch the ball the most.
No,
Although
nor the tight ends.
let's consider what offense they're running.
Players who predominantly run routes.
There you go.
Is that better?
But that said, to your point, Todd Gurley had 80 targets in 2017 and then 60 in 2018.
Ooh. The screen.
Which that's actually where the conversation gets interesting regarding Kenneth Walker. But anyway, I digress.
We spoke about that.
Yeah, that's right. Because remember, you can't get those targets without him getting the carries because they're out of the same formation, same situations. But anyway, so receivers, and let's just go receivers. You've got DK Metcalf, man, Tyler Lockett, and then beyond that, I think they have really interesting depth. They just signed Marquise Goodwin, but so the main thing to look for this year, obviously, is can Dwayne Eskridge be like a feature of the offense? And what's interesting about him to me is not just his tape. His college tape was certainly, there were some exciting things, but there are some reservations. He wasn't an offense that required him to run a lot of routes. You do worry about his ability to change direction without adding too many steps and stuff. He's not really lacking that greatly in that department. He actually is agile. He's just not, he's not Brandon Cooks, and that's a guy that he'll probably be comped to. But what's interesting about him is that Shane Waldron wanted, in his words, 3 threats. So we can assume that Dwayne Eskridge was a big target for them in the draft, and it's who their new coordinator wanted. So that's a good sign right there. So that means that they probably have high hopes for him, and we can expect a good degree of Dwayne Eskridge usage, even just beyond the targets, though. He's a big part of their ability to jet motion, to be interchangeable schematically with him and Lockett. And that's a big deal. Not just, again, the production, but who is where. That just affords you more versatility. So that's a big deal. Freddie Swain, I think, actually has maybe more to him than he has been able to show to date. For whatever it's worth, Geno Smith really seemed to like him, especially when they would go into gun and they're more pure drop back stuff. And he's pretty crafty after the catch. And I think he also fits the rough profile of receiver archetypes that the Rams have had. So there's that. They just signed Marquise Goodwin. Goodwin is very much a burner, deep post. He can run down the sideline as well. But where it gets really intriguing there for me is that, and I watched a little bit of him at Chicago, all the traits are still there. The skills are still there. I mean, granted, he is 32, so you're probably not going to see a lot of targets or anything. But what's really intriguing with him is, yes, he's a burner, but he can run routes, like in breaking routes that the offense requires, out breaking routes, like those deep outs at, like, we're not deep outs, but intermediate outs, like those blaze outs where you stem with inside leverage and then you break out to the sideline and the quarterback can just put the ball in the landmark and he'll just run into the ball and catch it. He can run those. He can run the dig route, that drift route, that speed cut dig route, basically, and under center play action. And he can run those big dig routes when they go into gun, that they run out of a variety of concepts. So he kind of fits the profile of just those common, like, flagship routes of what we call the Rams offense.
Interesting, because Pete Carroll, he mentions how returning wide receivers coach Sanjay Lal really found it useful having Goodwin back, because he can show guys how Sanjay coaches route running and how to run certain routes, and like he's basically a very good route runner. So good that you've seen that on the tape as well.
Yeah. And then obviously we're going to see what they have in Beau Melton. Maddie, I know you were watching a lot of him, but Beau Melton seems like, as seventh rounders go, he looks like a guy that could have gone in the 5th round and no one would have blinked an eye, probably. And then from there, you can, like, there's a path for a 5th rounder that maybe isn't there for most 7th rounders, but he seems like he's got awesome traits and skills, but he just needs some serious refinement. But Maddie, what did you see in Beau Melton watching him?
Well, kind of like Eskridge's tape, where he was a very scrappy run blocker, although Melton absolutely put his body on the line. He was throwing himself at people. Playing with Rutgers, obviously, heavy run offense, and trying to get creative because of their talent deficiencies largely. So his opportunities are kind of limited, especially because their quarterback as well couldn't really push the ball down the field very well or actually read concepts that well. So it's very much, he was kind of their yak guy. So bubbles, shallow screens, little hitches versus off coverage, where he was very good at stiff arming the first guy and bit upright, but stiff arming the first guy and kind of shifty, and obviously a dynamic threat after the catch.
Which ties into, like, the jet sweeps and stuff too, right?
Yes. But in terms of, like, downfield stuff, it's and route running, it's kind of an unknown. There's an element of him running around guys rather than winning the red line or using his upper body with his lower body stuff. And his hand usage definitely needs work in that area. And so that's a projection. But he can come in and just take the load off. And the way I see Goodwin as well is taking the load off Eskridge. Like last year, they didn't have a fly sweep threat after Eskridge got hurt. Like Locke could kind of do it, but you don't really want him to be doing that. And also then who's the guy running the second downfield route?
Right.
With Metcalf, there isn't anyone really who can fulfill that skill set. Now, if Eskridge doesn't take off or he gets hurt again, hopefully not, but could happen. Now they've got Goodwin and Melton. Now, they tried last year, like they had Penny Hart, but he's, 4.6 speed. He sometimes looks fast, sometimes he doesn't. And then they had Dorsett brought back into the fold, but his time in Seattle just seemed cursed. Yeah. But now I think they've got a few more options. And heck, even like a Derek Young, who's come in from that offense where they used to run the wing T, he same play, like he can line up as a wing and carry the football. He's got that experience, and he's also a dynamic threat. Melton has very similar athletic profiles we spoke about to Lockett and Baldwin's, kind of a combination of the two. He has elements to his game which are like Lockett in how he sort of waits for the ball as a receiver on the underneath stuff. It'll be interesting. The thing for him was at the Senior Bowl when he was had actual quarterbacks throwing him the football. He was still running around guys, but his movement skills were good, and he was causing Kobe Bryant problems in his press line of scrimmage releases with like a half step, drop your weight one way, like a crossover or a downhill slalom skier, and then breaks to the other side, and getting Kobe Bryant to lock his hips to the outside by stepping forward with with the outside foot, thinking it was an inside release, and then beating him to the outside. So, there's stuff to work with there. Like, and even his route running on downfield concepts where he didn't get the football, like, there's legit, like, intermediate, like, over stuff where you're like, damn, if he'd been throwing the football here, like, I'm intrigued. So,
go ahead.
Like you said, could have been a 5th round pick.
Yeah. So the thing with Melton is, the thing is all of the things that you just said, but just to add further, like, yeah, he is a raw route runner, and part of what probably led to that in his college career is because of the type of offense that he was in. Like, you get good at what you practice, I would imagine. But
hopefully,
hopefully. But so, like, he's a raw route runner, but on in-breaking stuff, when he does make the cut, he doesn't lose speed on it. I mean, you literally do lose speed. That's impossible not to lose speed. But relative to, like, other receivers, he's not losing a lot of speed, which when he does make, like, any sort of in-breaking route. So that right there, you just combine with his athletic profile. Like, he did have a good 3 cone at his pro day, 6.81, and combined with his long speed. And you see that on tape. Where he doesn't really lose his speed on in-breaking routes. That's a lot to work with, I think. So, he's coming into an offense where every separation is important for every offense, but he's coming into an offense now where horizontally breaking routes are going to feature more than they have in Seattle. So we can fathom that they can fathom, as in the coaches are expecting more from him there, and he's probably going to be practicing those types of routes more than he ever has. The other thing that, go ahead.
Well, it's interesting how him, Swain to a degree, but then certainly Eskridge and Goodwin, they all, you can see them having very similar deployment in this offense.
Yes. And I was literally going to make that point. And, like, all 3 of them, there's enough overlap between the 3 skill set wise that they can all be used, like, interchangeably to an extent. Like you said, maybe less so on the pure, like, jet sweep. Well, Eskridge and Beau can both do that. Maybe Swain not as much, but just whatever. In a pinch, maybe. But also the other thing that kind of binds those 3 guys together is that they all have, not spectacular, but they all can catch away from their body, like, mid sprint. Like, they don't have to stutter.
Are we
their
talking
steps.
in the short to intermediate area?
Yeah, I would say that. Yeah. Like, I know what you mean. Like, Beau Melton, he'll try to run under the ball and basket catch it, like, deep downfield and stuff like that, and time it up, which is maybe, I don't know, maybe that's better, so that you can keep running. Because if you have to catch with your hands, like, pronated on a deep ball, you're likely no longer facing the end zone. And then, because you want to be able to, but, like, on an in-breaking route over the middle, if you can catch the ball with your hands away from your body, that means you're not breaking your stride as much, and that can maximize yards after the catch, right? Mm-hmm. So Eskridge does not have a big frame, but he has hands. The ball stick to his hands. Melton, I saw him catch enough frequently away from his body, like, maybe he'll have a focus drop or something, but it's just, he's not like Locke, where he's trying to time his steps up with the timing of the ball coming out so that he can trap it with his chest. Like, and Locke can catch away from his body, but he does that a lot. It's like a habit thing. But Melton, Eskridge, Swain, they all can catch the ball away from their body in stride in that intermediate window, which is just huge for maximizing your yards after the catch and helping the quarterback out. They know they can lead a guy and stuff, maybe put the ball out a little bit more.
Yeah.
Things like that. So that's a characteristic that they seem to be coveting right now with Waldron and Dickerson running the offense.
Yeah, and interesting as well, because I feel like the yak in the offense is likely to increase because, like you said, there's going to be more horizontal breaking routes. There's these characters in the team, but also whoever's playing quarterback is going to probably access certain windows which are more conducive to yak. They're less difficult throws as per completion percentage above expectation, or over expectation, I should say. And therefore yak's there, and these guys having the pass catching traits to be able to get that done as well is quite exciting to me. Eskridge, just going back to him, he's still somehow kind of an unknown in terms of the downfield, like deep stuff.
Right.
On college, I was a bit concerned about him catching stuff like that. He sort of he got brushed off physically. He didn't really know how to separate late. I mean, the guy to learn from is Tyler Lockett, right? Because of how well he separates late, despite being a smaller dude. But Eskridge, college, I had down as a concern, and then the limited targets he did get deep. Thinking of, I think the preseason, perhaps against the Colts in the red zone fade, I may remember, but he did struggle with that too, both lower body, upper body wise, struggled to separate downfield in that sense at the catch point, even though he obviously has a very impressive speed. So that is a projection, and I'm interested to see how that looks. Preseason, I think we should be starting to get an idea, hopefully. It's a shame he got concussed because that just derails his progress. He seemed like to have some flashes, and then, I mean, by all accounts, it's a bad concussion. Had to go see a specialist. So
yeah,
hopefully he's fully recovered now.
And by the way, speaking of the Yak guys, Cade Johnson is still on the roster, and Johnson, I mean, this guy was incredible in school. Obviously, lower competition that you have to, acknowledge here at South Dakota State. But I mean, with the ball in his hands, just in the open field, like he was fantastic in school. Obviously tested poorly, but that's another guy, and that's kind of been an area that they've struggled in a little bit, creating after the catch. Maybe that's another guy that stands out this offseason. So they have plenty of options.
Cody Thompson, that's my guy. I like Cody Thompson. He's a Cody Thompson
guy. And another thing that we have to consider here too is like offensive snaps are going to be pretty limited for the even if they do keep a fifth or sixth receiver. And special teams are going to be really important for those guys to make the roster because they still get the practice squad elevations. They only started last year with 4 receivers, so and they opted to just kind of elevate guys at will, and maybe they go that route as well. So guys are going to have to stand out on special teams, and Melton's really good at that stuff, and Johnson's done some returning stuff as well, and so maybe that's where he could factor in. And obviously Thompson's got he's been pretty damn good as a special teamer. So
yeah, for sure.
One thing as well I'm interested with is Lockett turning 30. What does he look like with a quarterback who doesn't have the same chemistry with, and with a quarterback who doesn't have Wilson's deep ball accuracy? Does he transition into more of like safety blanket, quick separator in the slot, like Doug Baldwin? I don't think that's really his. I mean, he can do that, but it's not his strength. Like his strength is still being that deep burner. But as he gets older, it'll be interesting to see that.
So on that point, my main question for the receiving group is, now that we assume that on paper they're going to run more of pure form Rams offense, quote unquote, and it's no longer the Russell Wilson offense and design, is who's going to be the choice route runner? Who's going to be the guy who just has to win and the quarterback trusts that he will and will get the ball out like right at the break? Is that going to be Lockett? Could that be Eskridge? Could that be DK? My answer though really is Noah Fant, because you can run choice and looky with the Y, right? Depending on what the formation is.
Well, do we want to, if you want to transition to Fant, that would be my choice for the best offensive position group, tight end.
Okay. All right. So lay it on me. Talk tight ends.
Noah Fant, he's pretty good, right? And then Will Dissly is a superb, outstanding run blocker who has reliable hands. Is a bit of a load to bring down, got a nice stiff arm, but you can keep him on the field. Now, 12 personnel is kind of a case of, is your second tight end a good enough pass catcher, like respected enough as a pass catcher for a defense to honor him? Well, probably not with Dissly, right? Like he's not like a complete mismatch. He's not like Aaron Hernandez and Rob Gronkowski back in 2011 with the Patriots, but you can still survive on the field with them especially if you're running the ball quite a bit. And then forcing teams hopefully into base personnel, creating the mismatches there. And then Fant, Griffin is kind of that all-around dude, right?
Right. And Fant is still getting better. He's young, and he has gotten better at some things year to year. He's we talked about catching away from your body earlier. He's getting better at contorting toward the ball. You think like those seam routes where you've got bodies all around you and stuff, and just catching in short windows, tight windows. He's getting better at that, and that allows the quarterback to put the ball at different locations, relative to those defenders too. He is getting better at that. He's incredible after the catch, which that's another really interesting thing to look for in both under center and gun. But like a lot of their gun drop back, like all the low reads in this offense just turns like normal, like little hook routes and little like out routes into like, they turn into a pivot route, or they turn it into a return route, just so that the guy that catches the ball is always in motion when they're catching it. And that's just where, you'd rather have Fant even in a medium paced stride than like stationary. But if he is stationary, he can get going in a hurry too. So that he'll really just generate explosives the way Everett and Higbee did for the Rams. Like, just both those guys are incredible athletes after the catch. Fant probably even more so. He'll just take off on a 6-yard catch, right? So
yeah,
that's exciting.
And it's very exciting. And the Rams, they did kind of evolve from 11 personnel. And while we haven't really seen the pure Rams experience here, given the quarterback of the past, we haven't seen that in 11 personnel. I do think Seattle will lean more onto the 12 personnel because of things they can do out of it. And therefore, with the wide receiving talent we spoke about, it's going to be even harder for those guys to get their reps. And, Seattle was in 12 personnel last year, 27% of the time per Sharp Football. This year, I'd expect that number to be much, much closer to 50%, if not over 50%, right? Like, they have a real options there. And then Colby Parkinson, he's entering his 3rd year in the league, so it's kind of now, or sort of, you're starting to worry about him. But 6'7", and with the different quarterback, you're speaking about how Fant can be used. Now, Fant's a different level of athlete, but Parkinson's 6'7", and I feel like, down the seam read kind of deal, he can do that kind of stuff. He's like that, okay, Disley's not getting it done. Maybe you could say Disley's not getting it done in the receiving game. Let's mix in Parkinson too with Fant. You can do stuff with him. Tyler Mabry down the depth chart. He's 25 now, but he's kind of in that shorter squatter mold. He can run block. He showed a few things in the preseason, but be interesting. And then they picked up Cade Brewer as an undrafted free agent who I watched a bit of at Texas. He's kind of like a H-back kind of type, but interesting too.
So real quick, before I forget here, because you kind of mentioned it there with Parkinson and a different quarterback. Let me ask you guys this. I'm probably going to sidetrack us a little bit here, but why not? Who do you think benefits of all the pass catchers, whether tight end or receiver, from a stylistic shift at quarterback?
Well, that's complicated because there's elements to where guys can improve, and there's elements where they won't benefit. So like Metcalf, right? He's probably going to get unlocked over the middle a bit more, and I'll probably feel a bit harsh for judging his not judging, but regarding his route running as largely like to the sideline stuff. He might be able to show a bit more on the horizontal stuff and get more targets in that area. However, Russell was kind of the perfect quarterback for him in the sense that he spams all the sideline stuff, the stuff that DK is a mismatch and good at, and where he's likely to be one-on-one. It's hard to guard him in that kind of outside space. So, and you can say the same for Lockett, right? Like Lockett, he might get some more over the middle action, but then will he have the same chemistry on the deep ball, the same accuracy on the deep ball as he did with Russell Wilson? That's unlikely. I think the tight end group is the most obvious to me. Griff, do you think?
Yeah, I agree with you. I agree with everything you said about the receivers. But the whole over the middle thing is you're going from on a per target basis, Metcalf and Lockett are probably not going to be as efficient. So no matter how you slice it, they're going to they're not benefiting from this change. But just by virtue of the fact that Wilson simply, refused to go over the middle, Will Disley might get more targets than he's ever seen before in his career. And part of that's probably just staying healthy too, if he stays healthy. But on a per game basis, on a per snap basis, he's probably going to be seeing more action than he ever has before. So just by virtue of that fact, yeah, I would say the tight ends. So yeah, that's where I'd go there. But I really do think that we'll see that Lockett can be an intermediate separator. He just hasn't had to run those routes, but he certainly has, even after all those injuries that he's sustained in his career have added up. I still think he has quite a bit of lateral agility that he'll be able to show off. And he's a crafty route runner that will apply to the intermediate as well.
Okay, so now the worst position group on the offense.
Quarterback.
That's the obvious one, right? As much as we love Geno Smith and Drew Locke's hose, quarterback is tough, and it's kind of like with me. I want to believe there's something more. Like maybe they'll make something. They can't. That's it. They're riding. Although if it looks terrible, I do like Baker Mayfield's still out there. The Jimmy Garoppolo thing is still hanging. Like,
yeah,
are you going to do anything with that, or is
there
weird?
Drama in Nashville to perhaps exploit?
Yeah. Okay. Right. So basically, you're holding out hope too because you're having to invent these fantasies.
I'm just following the tea leaves. That's all I'm doing.
All right.
So is there a quarterback out there that is not currently on the roster, but Mayfield, Garoppolo, Tannehill, that would make this position group not the worst on the offense?
Well, Griffin said this before, but like if you look at Baker Mayfield's rookie year, when he's like operating in like bootleg stuff, he was pretty good. Like,
he was even good in drop back too. I mean, he was legitimately a good quarterback the last 8 weeks of his rookie year. And then he's been a fundamentally different quarterback in process and execution ever since. And I don't know why the best he's ever, Stefanski didn't even bring it out of him.
He needs the offensive mind of Freddie Kitchens. That's what you're saying.
Well, it wasn't even so. What wasn't the rumors that it was whoever, Kitchens got the promotion based off of what Baker did the second half of his rookie year, right?
Yeah.
But it wasn't the rumor that it was really the quarterback coach at the time that was the guy that was getting Baker playing like he's never played before. And then that guy's not even, he's coaching in college now. I always forget the guy's name. But point being, to answer the question, I only think of all those names, Tannehill's the only guy that I would feel good about saying that. I think Ryan Tannehill's a good quarterback in that 10 to 13 range of best quarterbacks in the league.
Ken Zampese.
Yeah, Ken Zampese.
Zampese.
He's the quarterbacks coach for the Commanders.
Oh, is he? Interesting. Since when?
Wikipedia.
Whatever.
Since 2020.
Interesting. And I guess Heineke.
Yeah, he had gone
quarterback.
Yeah, so after the Browns stuff, he went to the AAF, and then he was at Florida, and then he got a job with Washington in 2020. So,
cool. So yeah, if Mayfield is probably better than Geno or Drew would be, just because he's just more ready to go because he has a recent, substantial experience. And I have no hopes for Geno or Drew in terms of what to expect, but there is a curiosity there, right? Geno looked sharp in that Jags game. And there are things to isolate in the previous 2 games, really previous 3 games, including that Rams game where he came in.
Yeah,
there's something there with Geno, and so the question is, can it be harnessed, and then can you build out of whatever it is that you are harnessing there? Can it be where can he execute at a level where surrounding talent and scheming can actually make make him look better than he innately is. Whereas I don't think, just to contrast with Wilson, I think Wilson is styled such that there's no scheming you can do. To an extent, there's no rostering you can do that will make him fundamentally better. It's just Russ is what he is, so long as you reach a threshold of talent, and there might be diminishing returns and increasing the talent. It doesn't mean there won't be returns, but it might be diminishing relative to the next quarterback. And there's no scheming you can do. You can scheme guys open and he may not throw it, but then he'll create his own big play the next snap anyway, regardless of what you call it. But with Geno, you especially Geno, because we've seen more of him, he has enough arm talent and he has decent process. That can you actually build something here? But even before you get to that point, my curiosity lies in, he is, regardless of how good he will or will not be, he is certainly styled a certain way. And that style will, I think, will make them run an offense that is just drastically different with what they did with Wilson, meaning spend more time in under center. You can run a wider scope of under center concepts. You can build out of certain things differently. And then when you go into gun, you probably see less quick game and you see more of a comprehensive drop back game where there's a little bit more progression passing, and you are looking to get chunk gains in the intermediate more frequently, like what Jared Goff did. I mean, if it's crazy. Jared Goff, they built an elite passing game for about 3 years with Jared Goff. So, and Shane Waldron and Andy Dickerson were in the building for that. So they know it's possible. That doesn't mean lightning is going to strike twice, but they know it's possible. I don't think Pete thinks Geno's the long-term answer, but I also know that Pete thinks there's a remote possibility, a remote plausibility even. So let's see what happens. And a lot will probably depend on how the offensive line grows.
Well,
but they certainly have the guys that catch the ball. They have enough talent there. So.
Well, with Geno or Drew Locke under center as well, how it works with the fact that they'll be presumably doing more condensed splits, more of a kind of Rams style approach on offense for the reasons we've outlined, right? The way that kind of lends itself to being training wheels, and that like blends with the run action, the run game, like carrying a quarterback, and meaning, like, I mean, we saw it with Goff, like the easy throws, like within the structure, like robot kind of style. Like you should be able to build stuff around that. It's quite an optimistic take, but like it should be good, right? That's why it is interesting to see how that's going to play out, what we're going to get from them, not when Geno's coming into a game where he's unexpectedly in, and then the game plan since that point were all based off the Russ kind of style of offense. Like they couldn't change it up at that point. Having it actually catered to either one of the, well, it's not even going to be catered to either quarterback. It's going to be it's going to be Waldron's offense, right? When the starter wins the job, then they'll cater a bit more, but it will still be very training wheels. Run action, run friendly Rams style kind of approach with Goff. We suspect, right? Like that's surely the expectation.
Right.
So you mentioned the offensive line, and I guess the other worst position group, you could say tackle, but that feels harsh because they have upgraded it, and it's an unknown, right? Whereas the interior of the offensive line is a bit more known.
First off, the main change that occurred, Austin Blive. We talked about him a little bit, but he's great to have in there just because he knows how to set protections, and that will help with Geno and Drew with the quarterback change. He'll be like a stabilizing presence there. That said, I don't know about Locke, but Geno is actually pretty good pre-snap, I think, setting protections. So I think that's just more the merrier with Blive in that regard. But Blive has been a good center in the past. So we'll see what goes on there. If anything, even if he is no better than like what we saw of Posick toward the end of the year, we can at least expect him to be that for a full 17 games. So that's exciting right there. At guard, Gabe Jackson according to PFF, had a down year last year. He did get nicked up in the middle of the season. So to me, my main question is, can he stay healthy? Damian Lewis also got hurt, and he's had very good stretches, and then he's also had some bad games in pass protection. But
I wonder his move from right to left. Like,
I do wonder that
described it as I think a brushing your teeth analogy, but
yeah,
that is
a little
that
less physical brushing.
That didn't seem to do him much good.
Right. So does the extra year help? But it's year 3 is a big year for offensive linemen, coming into the league. So can he put together a healthy year? Can Gabe Jackson put together a healthy year? And then we'll see what the extent of the interior potential is. But I think that they have the talent. Like, Damian Lewis is very talented. And he was a big part of the offensive line turnaround last year. Like, they had good pressure numbers in pure dropback situations the last 5-6 games of the year last year. And Damian Lewis is part of that.
It seems almost harsh to put this in one of the worst position groups, but because, like, as you say, relative. when they're at their best, like, it's like good. It's a good offensive line. Like, we said when it comes out Russell Wilson had a bad offensive line. Well, he didn't. So
the line was definitely bad at times last year, but I point that to injury, and then not just injury, but then the downstream effect of that affecting continuity. That's really, on paper, I think they have the talent to be a good offensive line, but really continuity is the biggest question. Like, Charles Cross will be a good left tackle, but it will probably take him some time. And then there's the communication aspect of it, which is huge. That's where offensive lines become greater than the sum of their parts, right? You can't build communication without experience. So there's going to be, a learning curve. They're only returning 2/5 of their offensive line last year. And
that's the concern, because, like, you're mentioning continuity, not just with pass pro, but like the run blocking, they established such a nice chemistry up front.
Lewis and Posick looked like they were best friends out there.
Yeah, you were a big advocate for well, I don't know how big, but you were an advocate for re-signing Posick because of the progress and the chemistry that they showed down the stretch, right? And the run game was so dominant, and it's now like, well, we had such a dominant run game with Penny back there, but now, and you could mention actually running back as one of the best positions. We kind of glossed over that, but it definitely is stacked. Even if Carson's unable to keep playing, they've still got Penny, Walker, and then Homer's a great passing down back. But the run blocking is more important, and the run blocking chemistry, it might take them a while to find it. Hopefully not, but it might. And at which point, then what's carrying the whole training wheels I was mentioning, the carrying, the protecting of a quarterback with run game, run action, that's gone. And then it's a problem, because for all of this to work, the run game has to be efficient. And it was amazingly efficient last year. This year, there's a question mark with the interior offensive line, lack of cohesion, lack of continuity. 2 out of 5, that deal.
Yeah. So a big ol' we'll see, but there's potential there. Sometimes you say, we'll see, but you don't feel like there's a lot of potential. I'm pulling the we'll see card, but with optimism.
There we go. So,
for me, not to put words in your mouth.
So obviously the importance of quarterback is kind of unavoidable, and it's exciting. Sometimes I'm excited, sometimes I'm terrified. I guess they go hand in hand, right?
Mm-hmm.
But aside from that, well, no. Factor that in. How do you feel about the overall state of the offense heading into 2022? Are there any moves you'd like to see them make? Apart from quarterback, because you kind of got into that.
So I don't so the signing of Marquise Goodwin probably puts this out of possibility, but why not go sign Julio Jones? It takes 2 to tango. It's not just say like, oh, they should do this. I mean, he has to agree to sign, even if the money's right. He's like, well, I don't want to go to Seattle. Why would I go to Seattle? Like that could be part of it. Like, some players, just Seattle doesn't exist to them. And then also, it's totally valid to want to go to a good quarterback situation, especially a receiver of his caliber and profile, and knowing that he doesn't have very many years left in his playing career. So, I mean, yeah, he probably wants to go to an established team. I don't know why he's in the Green Bay Packer already, honestly. But yeah, there's that side of it. That would be cool. And also, there are, just for fun to point this out, there are clear-cut correlations when Seattle's personnel at the pass catching positions improves year to year, the pass rate does increase, and when there's depletion there, a roster attrition via injury, or you lose them the next offseason, the pass rate relative to whatever baseline they established decreases. So what that's is to say is Pete Carroll and his offensive coordinators will pass more based off of what they have at receiver and tight end. Obviously, Seattle has 3 targets, big targets that are established, including Fant with Tyler and DK. And then we discussed the promising depth there as well. But if you add Julio Jones to an offense that already has that already has DK and Tyler and Noah Fant, they're going to be passing the ball a lot. So like that's where Pete naturally goes. History guides us, shows us that. So just for that part of it, be like, oh, they're gonna light it up with Geno Smith, regardless of what the results are. They're gonna go for it. So that's another reason why.
So
but yeah,
33-year-old Julio Jones, yeah,
he was still really good in Tennessee last year before he got hurt. I mean,
there you go.
he looked like Julio.
It's not like when they signed Owens.
Hopefully, he'd be a lot better than that for whatever team ends up signing.
But why not get Odell Beckham?
Yeah, same thing, same concept for me.
Okay, interesting. Don't think that'll happen, but the discussion implies to me that overall, apart from quarterback, this is a pretty loaded offense.
Yeah, and
there's no real hole.
At the very least, it's like there aren't any more moves I would necessarily make. It's like the offensive line is kind of a question mark because a lot of it is just projection right now with the tackles. But
yeah,
it's also like I'm not going to replace the tackles. I'm not going to replace any of the interior guys at this point. So it's just more. I think they're good. I think they're like at a point where it's just there isn't really a need to do anything. Like they could add a running back to maybe push DJ Dallas. I don't. But other than that, I can't really think of anything other than the quarterback, of course.
Well, DJ Dallas has Josh Johnson, like Griffin.
That's right.
Yeah.
Josh Johnson is actually really good in pass protection too, which is interesting. He could be a 3-down back. But yeah, so like we know what Penny is. Can he stay healthy? I hope so. This is probably his last year on the Seahawks anyway. Kenneth Walker was definitely drafted so that they don't extend Penny, no matter how good he is this year. DJ Dallas is a nice utility player, good special teamer, etc. I don't know what the deal is with Chris Carson. Technically, he's still a Seahawk. And I don't know what his medical situation is. I don't know what happens there. If he's healthy, though, I mean, I wish we could have seen peak Chris Carson running behind the line last year toward the end, right? It was awesome to see it with Penny, but what would Chris have done with that, right?
Yeah.
I hope Josh Johnson makes the team. I hope he stays on the practice squad. If not, because I think he could be a future like high usage running back. So yeah,
I have something as well. We talked about
Travis Homer too.
Well, yeah, his an elite passing down back in terms of protection. But what we talked about how Lockett's usage may potentially change with a quarterback, and that sort of needs to be factored in. But I kind of wanted to ask, sort of raise Metcalf in terms of his yak. Like, whenever he caught a pass in the kind of intermediate, like he's always, that seems like a threat to take that to the house, right? Like, if he breaks a tackle, then cuts it across field, then he's gone. But with Russ, we didn't see that necessarily as much. That's something where I think perhaps, depending on who the quarterback is and whatnot, I feel like we might see more of that, but less of like the deep sideline stuff, like vertical but then maybe in like the low red zone, like we saw with Geno, he sort of unlocks him in the kind of go up and get the football, like back shoulder fade stuff potentially. I don't know. Do you have any thoughts on this?
Well, so yeah, I mean, I agree that DK will still be good down the sideline no matter who his quarterback is, because he's so good at running those routes. But there is no better quarterback for DK Metcalf and how he plays down the sideline, at least outside the numbers, in the NFL than Russell Wilson. Like, if I was DK, I would probably prefer Russ even over like Rodgers and Mahomes, even just for that aspect, like running those routes, because I don't know how Russ does it, but he does it. But that said, one thing that Russ and DK did struggle with outside the numbers were those short fades, those quicker setup fades, right? Where the ball needs to be a flatter. And it's not because Russ is inaccurate throwing it. It's not because, well, yes, DK is not the best go up and get it receiver of his size, right? But for whatever reason, he definitely had more chemistry with Geno. And Geno would throw those frozen ropes and hit the back shoulder, and DK would just go and pluck it. He got, he had the one, back shoulder touchdown against the Jags, but he also had that one over the shoulder against the Saints, where it's just like that's a hard ball to fit in there. And Russ wouldn't throw those type of fades or go balls in one-on-one situations. Ironically, he would against cover 2, like a hole shot, but like the one-on-one technique, for whatever reason, it just works for Geno and DK. Geno also had a similar ball on the wheel route, I think, to Tyler, or no, it was a fade against the Saints, and it was a little underthrown, but it was a type of trajectory that Russ just for whatever reason doesn't throw that type of ball there in that situation. Mm-hmm. So it's like, yeah, could there be a little bit more there with those quicker setup fade balls on the perimeter? So that's something to look for. With Geno. Now, we're talking a lot about Geno here, though. Drew Locke, Geno Smith is not a bad arm talent, but Drew Locke is genuinely very talented. And it's not just arm strength. He's capable of being highly accurate, and a lot of his bad plays are bad decisions, and not even like a bad read per se. It's like he's trying to do something he shouldn't try to do. Like he's very conscious of what he's doing. It's just like, don't do that. Don't try to do that. But Shane Waldron, the Seahawks YouTube channel, they do those film sessions with coaches, and they did it with Waldron for both Drew Locke and Noah Fant. And he mentioned, because when they got to the Noah Fant tape, Bridgewater was throwing the ball, but so was Locke in some of the examples. And twice, Waldron's really emphasizing Locke's ability to make every throw on the football field. And the entire premise of the Rams offense, at least what they did with Goff, is boxing the quarterback's decision making in to as like small a like base of operation as possible. But the offensive design can be intricate, but what the quarterback is reading is really simple, actually. A lot of process of elimination.
Yeah, the training wheels,
the training wheels in both under center and gun. Now it gets a little bit more. They put more on the shoulders in gun. But that said, Locke likes to get the ball out of his hand. He likes to even check down, even when he shouldn't. Like, hey, dude, go for it. Again, theoretically, if you can scheme the structure for him and you are asking him, you only do this, you only do that, and then if it's not there, get the ball to your outlet. Get the ball to the running back or tight end in the flat or on the little through hook route through the line of scrimmage, right? And he will do that. If you tell him to get the ball out of his hand, he will. Like, he shows it on tape. If you can just cull from his experience situations where he'd do something really stupid and then box him into that and then grow from it, I'm sure Waldron's thinking, okay, if I can get him to do that, the arm talent is tantalizing. Now, he might value more Geno Smith's decision-making value his better decision-making more. So it really depends. Pete Carroll also said that Drew is handling the offense well, but Geno has, he said, like essentially full control over it.
Yeah.
Shane might just think, okay, I like my receivers. I actually like my offensive line. If I think Geno, who is a lesser arm talent, can still run the offense, let's go. I can get the guys open for him. Just throw the ball. Geno will get to the spot if it's there. And again, it's Geno with the full camp as the one. Theoretically, it's Geno with the full preseason as the one. It's not him coming off the bench, running an offense that is meant for another quarterback like he did last year. And they gradually shifted toward what Geno does over the course of 3.5 games. It's the whole thing is meant for Geno now.
So it's the ultimate ceiling versus floor playing out at quarterback. Although obviously
it sure is. Yeah,
it's not. Yeah, although it's obviously not as black and white as that, because as you say, if Geno's going to be playing with good receiving talent and understanding the offense, even though he doesn't quite have the ability to push the ball all the way downfield like Locke and make some crazy throws, I mean, he can still put up big time numbers potentially. Wow. Yeah. And I think now I'm getting drawn in.
I know. I'm it's all about the optimism. See, what I do is I frame it as though like, oh, I'm just saying this. I'm just asking questions. And then I shift toward gradual full-fledged optimism.
Very you're just being curious. A curious
mind. I'm just but so I think what can really, to kind of come full circle, what I think can really what will really determine whatever potential this offense has given the quarterbacks is, can Eskridge be a high target share receiver relative to the fact that he's got DK and Tyler and Fant ahead of him. In fact, I think in a perfect world, DK and Tyler are leading the team in targets, but Eskridge would actually match Fant in target share. And that would mean that they've got like the quarterback can go anywhere with the ball, and Eskridge is getting open in gun, and he is, getting open and under center, and he's running out yards after the catch. He can be like, Eskridge can be like, let's take their staple concept, right? Like the play action dig, which Rams call it strike, Shanahan calls it drift, right? Where it's just a little speed cut dig at anywhere between 8 to 12 yards. And you're breaking into the hole off of usually under center, wide zone play action, sometimes drift. But the beauty of the concept is it's not like there's nothing special about a dig route, right? Like when it's like it's almost a one read progression, and then you hit the check down. Sometimes it's a 2-read progression. But the beauty of that concept is that you can run it out of the formation to either receiver with the zone action going against the grain of the route, or with the grain of the route, or the route goes against or with. So like there is like 4 different combinations you can run. So it can't just be DK running it anymore. They need Tyler to run it, and they need the other guy that's on the line of scrimmage to run it. That would probably be Eskridge, but it can also be Fant too. So that if they're really going full throttle with this thing, then they have as many guys that are on the field that can run those routes. And then also, it's not just if you can run more X strike, you're not just running more X strike. You're running all the other concepts that are based off of that progress and sequence off of the same formations and stems, initial stems. So Waldron can actually run his shit now. Sorry, language. The higher ups will really get me for that one. But I'm just saying, like, that's what it needs to be. They need Eskridge to be that guy. And also long-term picture, they clearly want Eskridge to be a Lockett replacement. I don't know if that will happen, but can he be a high target player with those 3 ahead of him? And that will be, I think that is what will define the potential.
What does high targets look like though?
So, like, I mean, I think in all likelihood,
maybe talk target share rather than
target share. Yeah. I mean, that's what I mean. But I think volume wise, if he gets 50 targets this year, that's exciting, because we assume Tyler and DK are getting 90 plus.
Yeah.
And Fant is getting around 50 to 60.
50 seems steep. The other thing with him as well is if they're able to be under center more, I feel like the fly sweep is probably more effective.
Agreed. But that's also what makes strike special, because any guy could be the motion man, and anyone could be, it could be the X, it could be the slot, or the Z could be the motion man, and then the slot or the Z could be the drift
split runner. The split action, which you can include with it, right? The sift across from the attached wing could even be Fant, who's got that kind of
absolutely
in
because he's the outlet. Then he's the check down. It's sometimes it's not always the running back. It doesn't have to be Todd Gurley. It can, you know what I mean? It was sometimes Higbee or Everett. I mean, Fant, you want him in that situation. frequently. And that's also where they're, sorry to cut you off, Manny, but that's where Disley being as good as possible is has like positive downstream effects, because if he is good enough to be the Y, that means Fant can be the U. He's off the ball doing the sift action, like you said, and that means they can interchange them. Fant can be on the line of scrimmage running the drift routes and the dig routes or the outbreaking routes from inline, and then Disley can do it. So they really force the defense to honor all permutations of what they do off of the same looks.
So already the pieces, the state of the offense has us kind of in, and personnel-wise has us envisioning the schematic possibilities. And what you've basically said is there's numerous pieces that can be plug and played into the Waldron, McVay, whatever you want to call it, scheme. So
the talent is there, the architect. So you see why I'm saying trade for Ryan Tannehill. You see why I'm trying to manufacture drama in Nashville, because if you airdrop in a quarterback that we all agree is good, it doesn't have to be top 5.
Well, it was
this offense is humming, scoring 25 points a game, man.
It was absolutely abhorrent what Ryan Tannehill said about Malik Willis. Absolutely horrible. Disgusting.
They got to get him out of there. How can you expect a locker room to exist with that kind of toxicity?
Yeah, what about
that's not the NFL way.
Chemistry?
Yeah, exactly. Like veterans never do that.
Or Malik. Let Malik play quarterback. Let him progress in the NFL without a toxic personality like Ryan Tannehill in front of him, making things hard for him.
All of this is why I was actually kind of on board with drafting Malik Willis, because I thought you had all the pieces there. You could give him the training wheels. You could keep him in like this kind of the structures of the plays and very, very clear read progressions of bang, bang, and just lose his arm. And then if it all goes to crap, run with him.
Yeah, that would actually that'd be fun. I wonder, the Titans offense would be so different with Willis just because they would be doing so much stuff out of the gun with him running, you know what I mean? Option and everything, the quarterback run game, and that would change their sequencing. They'd have to spend less time in under center so that their pass rates don't dip like sub 40%, basically.
But I'm interested to see if he can run throw the digs, or if he will. Like that's the big thing. Right. That's what dissuades you from adding him in Seattle. It sort of negates all the cool strike stuff we're talking about if you can't do that.
Right. That's what I mean. Just what you were saying earlier about Willis. That's the same thing for me, except of course with Desmond Ridder.
Well, that's why I liked both in different ways. I was happy to talk myself into both. I don't have to. Now I'm talking myself into Geno or Drew. So there we go.
Geno or Drew. Who do you, as it stands right now, before preseason games, before all the training camp rumors hit, guys, all three of us, who do you want to be the starting quarterback week 1 based off what we know right now? And you can even make a projection of what you think might happen in training camp or preseason.
Ty?
Locke, because upside, and this year might be lost one way or another. Might as well just go with the more upside, and I think more upside is clearly on with Locke than Geno. But for all the reasons that you mentioned too, it's like Geno knows the offense, and we saw some good stuff, particularly in that Jacksonville game, that maybe he can actually keep them competitive more than Locke, because Locke is just he's a wild card. You don't really know, but he's younger. There's the arm talent is really intriguing. It's just, can he become a better decision maker, or can he be that Jared Goff where you can just scheme for him and he can just execute, but do you trust him to execute? So, but I would still go Locke here. Ideally they acquire someone else though, but that's not what you asked. So Drew Wu.
Oh, good answer though.
It's a tough one, because if Locke wins out, then I think the offense is going to be better in 2022 because he's beat Geno, who has that command of the offensive language. Right?
That would be a good sign. Yeah,
it would be a good sign, because assuming Geno hasn't just collapsed, right? However, I'll say Geno. Like, I want it to be Geno. Good on him. Like, what's a story, right? Like, to come back and become an NFL starter. He was good. I mean, that Jaguars game, or Jaguars. How do you say it?
It's spelled Jagwire in America.
Yeah, it's Jaguars.
In North America.
Jaguars.
Okay.
It's
their defense was abysmal, but
yeah.
Geno made some really good throws, and there was a bit of stuff with Locke, which is there. I just can't wait to watch them in the preseason.
Didn't Locke have like 12 catches on that game, the Jacksonville game?
Yeah, he went absolutely off, and there was the DK stuff. The Jags were playing like man coverage and like busting everything, and like just terrible. Like they'd never been prepared, basically. But there was still some tight windows, like high CPOE throws, I'd say.
Yeah,
but,
and also
yeah, and also,
from a neutral perspective, if I wasn't a Seahawks fan, I would want to see Geno, because Geno's not going to get another chance after this.
That's what I'm saying. It's a great
story. Drew, by virtue of being younger, will get another chance eventually.
True.
But the reason why I lean Geno, and I see merits to both. The reason why I see Geno is probably just because we never got that itch scratched of wanting to see just one more Geno game after the Jags game.
Russell coming back. I mean, aside from the fact Geno played well, Russell coming back 4 weeks too soon. There's just
Let me ask you guys this: considering the way that they played against Green Bay defensively, holding Rodgers to 17, you think they win that game with Geno?
Yeah.
It's a 1-score game at least, I think.
It's just tight. It's
tight. So the main thing to really, really qualify what the Jags game was with Geno. Yes, he made those really well placed shot plays and those over routes, that intermediate to deep routes that he hit on, and he looked very accurate. But what's really interesting about that game to me is that we talk about quick game concepts and then pure drop back, 5-step drop concepts. And again, a 5-step drop concept from gun, the quarterback is literally taking 3 steps, but it's a gun 3 equals 5-step concept. So again, with Russell Wilson, and again, the Jags game is a 1-game sample, so I'm not getting too crazy with this, but with Russell Wilson year to year, by percentage of total dropbacks, it's 30% of his dropbacks are quick game. That's an absurdly high rate. You're not going to be an efficient offense on paper doing it that much unless you're incredibly efficient getting the ball downfield and your other stuff, which lo and behold, Russell Wilson is.
And Griff, from quick game, if you're not necessarily always honoring the structure of quick game, so you're improvising and then you're finding a big play out of it, right?
Yeah, that's right. So there's a lot of quick game with Russ. And then not only is it a lot of quick game, it's not even the interesting quick game. You can't get to the second level with him very much for the same reason he doesn't go over the middle. It's just stick and snag and slants and all that, and a little bit of spacing. It's never stick nod. It's never stick dig. You saw a little bit of inverted snag dig in 2020 with Shoddy. Then it just all fell apart, right? But so 30% quick game, and then a league low, bottom 3, bottom 5, some years a league low, 20% of his offense was 5-step, right? So it's just the percentages stayed the same with Geno in the Saints game for the most part and the Steelers game. But then the Jags game, again, 1-game sample size, 1 play in either direction can change the percentage. But he was 35, 36% 5-step. And then he only had 4 true quick game concepts in gun. And then when they were in gun, the pass rate in gun was higher with Geno that game than it was with Russell Wilson for almost every single year of his career. So what that tells us is they were running the Rams offense. They were running the Goff offense in that game. Can you at least
from a play type, not necessarily from an appearance. Well, more from play type in sense of quick game versus 5-step drop, that sort of stuff, but not in the sense they weren't able to fully that was the most Geno it looks, right? Like the most
You're
cases
right.
Geno, but still it was still based off the core of Russell stuff. So that was only
but
that was
was it
like
though? Because they were also so like with Russ, you spend usually in your early down snaps no more than 40% of your snaps under center because you want to have a lower pass rate when you're in gun, which means more gun, which means less under center total.
right.
The splits with Geno, again, one game, and it's still not as much as Goff, but Goff is like 60+% under center with the Rams. Geno is 56% under center early down. And that means when you go into gun to get your total pass rate up, you have to pass at a higher clip. They passed at a higher clip at Geno, and not only did they pass at a higher clip, it was 84% that game. With Russ, it's usually anywhere between 60 and 75. They were actually running a drop back offense. They called like 10 5-step concepts in early down.
Yes, you're
and
right.
like 4 quick game concepts. And the drop back concepts were concepts we saw very little of with Russ, where they were wraps, where you've got like a hitch and a dig. You got like that play called like arches, where it's an over the middle, just at the intermediate at the first level route, where you got like a shallow followed by like a quick seam, like in breaker.
Yes.
And that's where Geno was hitting Swain, and Swain was running for yards after the catch with it. They called that like 3 times.
All intermediate deals.
Right. And so and then here's another one. In 3 games with Geno, when they were in under center, they called strike, that play action dig route 5 times in 3 games with Geno. They called it 3 times all year in 14 games with Russ. So that makes me think that they were building toward running. Waldron's like, well, I'll just do what I did with Goff with Geno. So that's where I was really wanting just one more game. Well, we all were. One more game with Geno, not just for his performance against the Jags, but for what would the macro structure of the offense look like, where they actually run the quote unquote heralded Rams offense.
Well, and not to beat around the bush, and I definitely need to watch that Jags game again, because you've got me very intrigued now. But the Packers game, where the openings were, some of which Russell missed because his finger was obviously not right, but some of which Russ just doesn't access, or the plays called weren't really suited to beating them. Combination of all 3. But I feel like that kind of Geno offense that you described would have been much better suited to attacking those coverages, along with the fact that they've tried to run the ball at a similar rate. But anyway, how well?
Yeah.
Realistically, you asked me how I see it playing out. I just don't think Drew Locke can be as mistake-free as he needs to be to win the job. Like, I feel like he's going to throw a dumb pick or 3, and you know how important, like, not turning the football over is. And I just don't see how he's... I mean, I hope he proves me wrong. But to me...
I think, the coaches, I think, if I just had to guess, I think the coaches are, okay, it's Geno unless, and that unless means Drew surprises us.
Yeah.
And I don't think they think that's impossible, but I mean, I really emphasize Pete emphasizing Geno's command over it. So
how they handle the competitions will be interesting. Like I need to go back and look at how they handled it back in the day when they didn't have a clear quarterback. But in terms of series in the preseason games, like, do you give them 2 series on, 2 series off? Do you give them a half each? Like, you want them against similar. You want to get against a similar level of competition, though. I guess you mix it up, but like their preseason opponents are a bit more varied this year. And Steelers, Bears, Cowboys. That's a real interesting mix of tough defenses. I don't know what their depth is like, but still, like there's some interesting looks up for them to face, I'd say.
Yeah, for sure.
Anyway, so I guess this is a vaguely positive review of the state of the offensive roster. Not too offensive.
And where we aren't positive, we're curious. Euphemistic language.
Well, we always aim to be curious, right? And so we'll be curious when it comes to the defense, which we'll focus on next episode, because we spoke for so long about the offense. And I mean, over an hour of us is far too much time. Thank you for listening. Thanks for watching. Please do rate it. We've had some good 5-star ratings on Spotify. I see you guys. On Apple Podcasts, I see you guys. and hopefully on Spreaker too, but I haven't checked that one out. But thank you so much, everyone, for listening and watching if you're on my YouTube. And yeah, we appreciate you.